great to have you back with us on The Watchman, my friend.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and today's going to be very interesting because we are walking in the footsteps of Jesus. Danny, what better place to start than Nazareth, where he grew up?
The hometown of Jesus is spread right in front of us. Although today it's a big urban metropolis, it's hard to imagine a little tiny first century set of shacks around the spring. But this is the site. This is where it all started.
It's a sprawling metropolis today.
Yeah, it's about 80,000 residents. Ironically, most of them are Muslims. The Christians today are a minority.
And predominantly Arab, by the way. This is kind of the Arab capital of Israel in many ways.
Arabic is the first language here, although it's part of the state of Israel. They're all Israeli citizens. But the focal point from a Christian pilgrimage point of view is a little dot there in the middle of the valley. It's actually the biggest church in Israel, probably the biggest in the Middle East.
Really?
The Church of Annunciation. The place that claims to be the very spot where the angel Gabriel appears to Mary, is recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, blessing her and announcing that she has become pregnant.
Yes.
Okay?
Pregnant with a man named Jesus, who would go on to become Jesus.
Jesus of Nazareth,
Yes.
Jesus of here.
Exactly.
So right next to the giant Church of Annunciation, there's also a pretty significant church called the Church of St. Joseph, which claims to be his home/carpentry. Now, first of all, a carpenter is a Western Christian image of his profession. The text doesn't really say that. His profession in the Greek language is tekton. Tekton has a more general meaning of some craftsman. But whatever he was doing, that may have been his workshop in his home. And inside the church, again, there's an underground section which has the statement, this is where he was disciplined to them. Meaning this is where Jesus grew up.
In the first century, we go to the Gospels where Nathanael, the disciple Nathanael says, he hears about Jesus. He says, Nazareth, can anything good come out of Nazareth?
Yes, and especially...
It was a backwater.
And especially coming from the words of Nathanael, which was a native of just a nearby village called Cana.
Yeah.
Okay, the wedding, the miracle at the wedding took place there later on. And he's a neighbor, he knows Nazareth, and it's such an unknown, tiny little place that was his response. It's hard to imagine that Nazareth today. Look just how, urban is this landscape today. It was apparently something really, really small, just a few homes around the spring. Josephus, a very detailed source of the first century, who knew this area very well, records many sites and events here. He never mentions Nazareth. Demonstrating, like Nathanael, Nazareth is nowhere.
Yeah, it was insignificant.
Insignificant place. But from the 4th century on, when Christianity is the religion of the Roman Empire, the crowds start coming, the pilgrims.
It becomes a site of pilgrimage.
To this day, busloads of pilgrims will come on daily basis to visit that spot, the Church of Annunciation, the Church of St. Joseph, the spring named after Mary as well. These are all sites that are so important for the Christian believers today.
Now, Danny, we're going to move on to Cana, which you mentioned, which is famous as really the place of the first miracle of Jesus as described in the Gospels. But talk a bit more about his time here in Nazareth. He was here until he was 30 years old.
Yes, when he is about 30, I quote the text, he meets one called John the Baptist. It didn't happen here, it happened in his travels down the Jordan River. And after his return from that baptism, when the dove appears, the voice says, this is my son who I have chosen, he returns to his hometown. He wants to convince his neighbors that he is the one. The text tells us he goes into the synagogue, he quotes the prophecies of Isaiah about the arrival of a Messiah, and then he concludes, today these prophecies are now finally being fulfilled.
Before your very eyes.
Before your very eyes, but the reaction is not that positive.
Yeah.
They knew him to be very normal mortal.
Yeah.
You're the Messiah?
As Jesus said, he quoted Isaiah, a prophet is not without honor except in his own hometown.
Yes, as
He
a
was
result
rejected
of
here
their
in Nazareth.
rejection, he makes that famous quote, En Navi Be'iro, is how Isaiah said that in Hebrew. And he does what I like calling today in the modern high-tech world, a relocation. He moves from Nazareth, he'll never come back, and he goes to a small fishing village by the Sea of Galilee called Capernaum.
Where we will also visit today. Real quick, Danny, before we move on to Cana, where we're standing right now, this beautiful overlook, stunning, of the modern city of Nazareth. This may have had some significance in Jesus' life as well, as mentioned in the Gospels.
Yes, as they reject his proposal that he is the Messiah, they respond, no, you're not. You are the false Messiah, and false Messiah should be stoned to death or thrown to their death. And the only place where you can throw someone off a cliff and it could be a deadly fall is right behind us.
Right. Here in Nazareth, this would be the place.
It's on the
It
edge
is
of
steep,
Nazareth.
folks.
It's outside the city,
Yeah.
but it's on the edge of this environment. And this is a very steep fall.
Yeah.
So this place is called to this day Mount of Precipice or Mount of the Leap.
Wow.
Okay, and it's still not built up. They're still trying to preserve this original environment here. What a view! You can see the
What a
Jezreel Valley,
Yeah.
you can see the Carmel, you can see the Gilboa.
Well, it didn't end, thankfully, on this mountain here, on this cliff for Jesus. We're going to head now to Cana, the site of his first miracle. Danny, lead the way, my friend. Let's do it.
Turning water into wine.
Let's see where it happened. Let's go.